Hello everyone and welcome to my Nika, the Snow Owl Assassin guide. Here she is, all the skills, pairings, talents and artifacts that you're going to need to know on Nika and why she's an amazing, effective infantry hero. Hello everyone and welcome to my Nika guide. Yes, we're going to be covering Nika today. She's one of the best, honestly, infantry commanders in the game for a lot of different reasons that a lot of people may not understand because they've only just started playing the game and they've not had too much experimentation with her yet, but we're going to be going over it in this video. So if you enjoy my video, smash a like, comment and subscribe to the channel for daily Call of Dragons content with me, an official Call of Dragons content creator. Now, going into Nika, why is she actually good and where is she used? So Nika is one of those infantry heroes when we look at her skills that are all about damage, but she also excels at counterattack damage. And when you do factor in both of those things together, they are an insanely deadly combination when it comes to PvP as well as garrisoning. Yes. So this is where Nika is going to shine. And when we go over the skills, you're going to understand why. So her first ever skill is a 1500 damage nuke, which is one of the hardest hitting skills, the same as an Emery's in damage factor, and she reduces their target's health by 30%. So already a 1/3 in reduction of stats means that target will die a lot sooner compared to your tanky infantry unit. Her second skill isn't anything to be excited about, it's just a peacekeeping damage dealt, but it is relevant for her in another tree which we will talk about when we get to talent trees for Nika. So it is a really okay ability and it does allow those players that do get her through gold keys to, obviously get some sort of peacekeeping infantry main commander to take over someone like Garwood or Bakar in that slot. So her skill 3 and 4 is what starts to make her into an infantry menace, let's just say. So she gets a 20% infantry attack bonus and a 10% march speed. And the march speed in PvP is so needed for the ability for the infantry to hit someone with that rampage trigger and use that 80% slow to punish them, right? So very, very good and key ability when it comes into the PvP combat. And when you now pair this with the skill 4, she gets a 10% hero skill damage dealt bonus and a 20% counterattack damage. And when you pair these type of stats with this amount of damage, and you can put Nika with, you'll be surprised at a number of heroes when we come to the pairings that is such a great combination. Even if you had a commander at 5115, somehow by pure luck, she is one of the best infantry investments for that 5115. I would not say you should be investing your legendary heads. All I'm saying is with your gold keys when you do unlock her, being able to get a 5115 hero here is actually a really insane choice. Even if you get something like 5155 eventually, that is the really best progression you would want. And you get all the bang for her buck without going too crazy. However, this is when she becomes a garrison machine, and the only time you're going to become a garrison machine is to those high spenders. So I wouldn't recommend obviously this part of the segment to those low spenders, but if you want a little bit of knowledge to understand why this match is so strong, it is because of her Awaken skill. So once you've obviously invested all the heads in total to get a legendary hero all the way to the Awaken state, and just to remind you guys, even at a 5551 state, if you're going to max that last skill, that is over 310 sculptures to do so. And with those 310, you could easily 5551 another commander. So for a low spender, it's not always advisable to try and force an Awaken stage if you can obviously maximize more flexibility with different heroes. But Nika's last skill is an additional passive skill she gains. And when she launches a normal attack, she has a 50% chance to deal hero skill damage to the target with fewer than 50% units remaining. And this skill in its own is why she's so good in Garrison, because the way a Garrison versus rally fight always occurs, normally the leader of the Garrison and the leader of the rally will fight each other, and they might send in, for example, 150k troops instead of their full march, and by doing so they're not going to obviously use as many troops, and they're not going to, in theory, cost their hospitals as much. So what you do is obviously send reinforcements. So as you're reinforcing that rally, everyone else is obviously tanking the hits and taking the damage for you with their tier 4 troops, for example. However, the health overall of the rally is still determined by the rally leader. So when you're watching the health bar go down, that is the main marcher's health, and even though you're refilling it and it's still at 1 million troops, for example, he still suffered over 50% worth of casualties, and once he hits that, he will start taking a considerable amount of more damage, especially if it's an infantry garrison you are fighting against, because all these guys do is take little damage and honestly dish it back out very, very well. And this is why Nika is in the best garrison combo, which we're going to talk about in a very second. So that's all of her skills covered. I hope you guys can understand why she's actually a really good hero for infantry players. Obviously her talent trees ain't the greatest because you have peacekeeping, but I do have a talent tree to showcase it later on in the video. So let's now go over her pairings, because her pairings is the one thing that you guys are probably now wondering, with all that information, what can we pair her with? And the number one pairing we'll go straight in is that Madeline primary with Nika behind. Why? The Madeline gives you so much defensive stats plus a 20% attack bonus, allowing this Nika to hit even harder before she goes. As well, this match is the primary garrison combo, so if you have a Madeline maxed out Awaken and with an Awakened Nika, you are in phenomenal shape to be a garrison leader, because the amount of damage you do not take but deal out is insane compared to a lot of players. And this match as well in PvP open field combat is one of the most disgusting matches with the amount of counterattack and AoE it can deal. It allowed you to even hit a cavalry march, slow them down and hit them with a nuke because of the Nika behind the Madeline, and this is why I would always recommend putting these two together. Another match you could always put Nika behind is always Garwood if you don't have Madeline. Garwood is a fine substitute. He's just basically Richard I, so obviously you're going to be healing a load of troops, meaning in theory if you're in PvP combat, you're going to be feeding more merit to the enemy. So just remember that's the sacrifice you're using when you have Garwood on the field. But if you're going to use it for PvE content, this is perfectly fine. You could reasonably do this. Another combo is Fear. You could put Fear in the primary slot as well as Nika in the primary slot. It doesn't really matter depending on what you want. Obviously your talent trees will dictate this. So if you want a more supportive tankier march, you could always run a Fear and not have to worry about it. And if you wanted your DPS heavy march to be set up, then you would run your Nika in the primary slot. So again, just depends on what talent trees you want to run. If you haven't got any of the legendary heroes, obviously Bakar is okay to run, but the best in slot will be Eliana. Eliana is an amazing flexible infantry hero for Nika as well. These two together will destroy so much of the PvE content for you and be a really good frontline in Dragon Trials and other content. So I would always recommend this piece. One super honorable mention just to finish up the talent section is going to be one that's going to always raise eyebrows, but those experienced players already know what we're going to mention, and it's the Emery's and Nika combo. Yes, this is one of the most filthiest marches in the game, and it is an Emery's primary command with full cavalry march, just remind you guys. And the reason why you run this march is because Emery's having cavalry gives yourself that unyielding rush combo, and having that unyielding rush and even having a 5-5-1-1 Emery's allows you to have an insane 40% regeneration rate, meaning you're going to be able to fire off this skill so fast and kill players basically in the backline immediately without them even realizing. And the reason why, again, you're going to be dealing 1500 damage instantly with a 1k rage cost that gets hit with the unyielding rush perk from cavalry, and then the Nika will again immediately hit with the 1500 and reduce their health by 30%. And on top of all of this, skill 4 does work with the march, meaning this march will gain 10% hero skill damage and 20% in the counterattack damage march. So it's a really powerful cavalry march that a lot of players abuse and use. So I would recommend this as an honorable mention in all the pairings. So to final off everything, we're going to go into the artifacts for Infantry, for all those guys that are wondering what artifacts you can run with her. And we're going to go over all of them and just give you guys the understanding on why. Kara's Wrath is something you would only put on her if you're going to use her as a rally for a fort. And this is why I've got it on her, just in case I'm going to use her for that role. And the reason is there is a specific talent tree we can go over that is for peacekeeping fort killing with Infantry. And it's a very effective page to do. So you could always run that. And it is also very helpful in events like the Courage, because obviously when you rally those higher levels, you're going to need an infantry rally to do so. And having actually Nika as the primary is a very, very good choice. So if we're going to replace this Kara's Wrath now, the obvious choices for me in my top 3 is always going to be Dragon Scale Armor, Fang of Ashkari, and Greymar's Warhammer. And the reason why these 3 are kings, in my opinion, in the infantry role is for 3 different reasons. Greymar's Warhammer is the best option for locking down targets and obviously trying to kill a single target. Because if you're stunning a specific player, and obviously you can stun up to 4 targets, and this is for 2 seconds, this will allow you to finish them off when they're trying to run. And if they're dead, obviously their hospital bill is going to be punished. So Greymar Warhammer, really, really good in PvP. Very good artifact to use. Fang of Ashkari is another phenomenal one in PvP. The reason why is that, as you can see, the AoE effect it does is very good at denying areas and space in the map. So what you could be doing is position yourself, as you can see in the screen, and as you're positioning yourself, you could be seeing people trying to gank you with that cavalry unit or trying to kill you from the side and get you on that flank. But what you're able to do is hit this AoE and punish them for entering that zone. And it is honestly a really good thing because you can drop this and walk away. This will stay there for you for the duration of 8 seconds. And obviously this can be upgraded over time for more damage. So really good artifact for an aerial denial. Very cool effect, in my opinion, for an infantry march to bring. And then also you have Dragon Scale Armor. So this is something, again, you can bring to the battlefield. This is going to give you a massive 3300 shield and that 10% attack buff. So when you are in fights and you're going against those ranged units that you know you're going to be going against, you're going to be getting a nice resistance against them. So you honestly is so much more tanky than you would appear on the battlefield. So really, really cool way to be a super frontline unit for your march. So if you want to be basically frontline heavy, Dragon Scale. If you want to be more of an off-tank with aerial denial, Fang of Ashkari. And if you still want to be an off-tank but be more of a stun lock, a CC-based march, Greymar's Warhammer. You can use other stuff in Dragon Trials, stuff like Dragon's Rift and the Silence Springs of Silence, for example. But another one to mention is Breath of the Forest. If you are going to be a garrison leader, you are required to have this. The reason why, if you have this compared to your opponents, not having their rally equivalent, which is the Blood Banner, you will always win the fight. If they both have artifacts, equipped, it's going to be a more even fight, and that's why you must always have it equipped. For only, obviously, garrisons, guys. The final thing, which we said, Springs of Silence is a good option if you've got it for Dragon Trials. A nice bit of AoE for your march. It doesn't do too much else. The slow's okay, but we already do better slows. And if you're looking for CC, there's better options. One of the best artifacts that you must run if you're an infantry player, and you can run on the Nika if you're going to try it, is the Harlequin Mask. This can be used for your frontline units, and this is always going to be used only in raids. And the reason why is you can taunt that behemoth for 5 seconds. So if you lose aggro, you can reclaim it and make sure that your DPS are doing the marches. And then in between, if we're looking for epics, honestly, a really powerful epic is Butcher's Blade. This deals 900 damage each swing. Up to 3 target legions can be hit. And as you can see, it's 2 swings. So this can be an insane amount of AoE damage that you actually have on your infantry units. That's all the artifacts broken down, guys. I hope you followed through. And with all that said, we're going to go into now the talent pages. So here we are at the talent pages for Nika, and we're going to try and make this a nice, smooth, easy talent page system to go through, since obviously we go quite in depth in the past, and we're going to try and break it so it isn't too crazy. So we split it up. We've got 2 different trees to work with in the Peacekeeping tree, infantry tree, should I say. One is to do with infantry buffs, which is this tree on screen, and we have another one which is more infantry, just general use, which is counterattack damage. So the way the counterattack damage build works is pretty simple. We want as much march speed as possible to actually get in and out of combat with this build, because we're going to try and abuse how much we can actually kill someone, get into another forced combat, and maybe escape with our lives afterwards. But what we would normally do is put normal damage and cool-headed. So whenever you cast that rage skill, you get that amazing defense buff. From here, get the defensive stats of not taking any damage from basically the mages and the archers, which is really powerful. But this is where the build starts to gain its actual tankiness and the effects back. So we go for last word. Last word is going to give you more counterattack damage on the counterattack damage Nika's skills already have. And then you have a couple of options. And the one I really honestly enjoy doing is putting 1 point into flank protection, or even 2 points if you feel a little bit greedy. And then you can put 3 or 4 points into Encouraging Dance, which will allow you to put Ready for Battle as your main ultimate keystone talent. And the reason why we do this is, again, you're going to have either 15 or 30% less damage taken as a bonus when you're surrounded, and as an infantry player you are always going to be surrounded. As well as this Encouraging Dance, it gives you, when you're being hit, the chance to gain rage, which is great for obviously Nika, but the payoff is obviously having all the counterattack damage. You have a chance to launch an extra counterattack when you are hit with a normal attack. So really, really cool effect with for 8% chance. It's a 1 in 10 that's going to hit, and obviously when you got more units hitting you all at once, that 1 in 10 can trigger a lot more often than you think. This is the first side of the tree, and when you finish it, you would go down into this peacekeeping tree, into the skill tree, shall I say, and you will go into the attack, health, and either you can choose counterattack damage to buff it even more to gain another 4%, in total having a 8% counterattack damage from talents, or you can go for the rage generation with Spirit of Rage, and with your last point you can choose any of these 3. They're honestly really, really good no matter which one you pick. I personally like Detach, just to give yourself a little bit more, nearly 2% extra skill damage instead of the little bit of normal hits. So it's up to you if you want to go for that route, but that is the ending of the main infantry counterattack build. Now we're going to go into another infantry tree, and it's very similar as you noticed, but it's based more on stats. And because you're basing it more on stats, you play a little bit different with this build. So this build is all about trying to actually punish players that have a lower tech than you. So if you're someone that has very high tech and really strong infantry, this is more going to be tailored for you. And the reason why is, in the start, we don't need as much march speed because we're going to be trying to stay in combat as long as possible to kill as many players as we can. And that's why we're going to start taking egoism instead to gain that tankiness with the same damage and cool-headed combo as before. We still keep the all-conquering to gain a less normal attack damage, but this is where the build starts to differ compared to the others. Since you have more stats because you've got higher tech, generally, if you're one of those players, increasing any of your stats by a 5% margin for 1 second is obviously powerful, but with this build, we will be finishing with Iron Will, and this will increase this to 2 seconds, and this also means this effect will be increased to 4 seconds, and you can see now where this build starts to get its actual power. It's about sustaining insanely high buffs that you have compared to, again, your opponents. I would still put 1 point into flank protection because it's really good to have as a 1-pointer, and 4 points into encouraging dance, and finishing off the build with, like I said, Iron Will. And that is all about stats. All you want to be is a high-tech player for this, and you're going to be able to take advantage of those stats by boosting them even further and beating your opponents. With this, you'd still go down the skill tree like before. You'd get the attack, get the health stat here to boost your health, and get the rage generation. And up to you if you want to go for more rage, which I personally would prefer. But with this build, you can also gain that extra damage depending who you pair the Nika with. But obviously, the rage cycle is better. It fits every other infantry hero that you can pair with her instead of making her more tailored. And then you finish off the build with concentration to increase again more of your defensive stats. So as you can tell, this is a very tanky stat based build for Nika, which she could kind of need. She doesn't really have anything like that. Another build we're going to go over right now is the skill tree. This is if you ever do decide to go down it. This tree is generally used if you're going to like rally forts, even in Dragon Trials, or just clearing content that's not PvP. But if you want to try it in PvP, you can. I just don't think you're going to get as much success compared to these other two builds because, again, they're going to be used for different usages. So skill tree here is all about, like I say, bang for your buck, and it's really good in the PvE realm. So what you're going to go for is the attack, damage, and rage generation with the rage flip, again on the Spirit of Rage. This is going to allow the build to fire off as many skills as possible, and then you're going to go down a concentration to gain some defensive stats for paying off doing this. You can, again, guys, choose to go detached. This is going to give you an absurd amount of damage on your skill. So this is, again, if you want to go all in damage, you can definitely go detached. And if you want to make this skill damage build tailored for PvP, you would go for Unquenchable Will. But if you want this to be, like I say, a PvE content build that does insane damage but has sustain, you're going to need concentration. You're going to go and grab focus and Raging Tide, and then finish off the build with Thirst of Blood. If you're in a raid, you would take the Caged Animal, because this will allow your infantry march to sustain even higher damage and hopefully hold aggro if you use a Nika as your deputy or primary in that slot. So we go to the infantry to finish this off, and for me it's always going to be 5 points like you've seen earlier, 1 point into here, 4 points, and then go 5 and 1, finishing off with 1 point in all conquering. So if we look here, this is the tree you would be following and putting your last point into all conquering, and that would be finishing off the skill tree. And that is it, guys. Nika's talent trees, nice and easy, done. We've got one last tree to showcase, and this is some that some people do run for a specific reason, and I'll show you why. And it's the Peacekeeping tree, and no one really uses this. I don't use it myself, I personally don't, but you can use this again to kill all of your Darklings and stuff. And if you're going to do this to kill Darklings, it's actually a very effective match to do it, because you're able to gain shields with this build, but actually makes your Nika very, very surprisingly tanky against these units. You can go for whatever you want in this section. For me, I actually go for the attack, as advised by some other players, and then you go for the rage generation, because again, this build is all about killing as quickly as possible these guys. And when you finish this build, you will go for Bane of Darkness to deal 5% more damage and finish off with War Trophy. And this is why you go this build, just to get War Trophy for the end game. So when you're at, you know, the last 2-3 weeks and there's nothing happening and you're trying to stock up as much as you can, War Trophy is really good because it's going to give you extra item rewards for completing this. This includes obviously your dust and XP tokens, but it also includes your resources and speed ups. So hope that makes sense to you why you could go the Peacekeeping tree. It is an honourable mention, but I wouldn't advise it for you. But that is it, guys. That is going to be Nika, the Snow Owl, new legendary hero guide for her, up to date for you guys since you've been asking for her. Is she any good? Obviously, she's amazing. I use it all the time. You can see how powerful mine is already from using gold keys and leveling her up. And obviously, if I want to in the future, as we said, she's going to be a phenomenal deputy as a Garrison hero. And we're obviously going to see in the future maybe other infantry heroes that she might get paired with. So if you enjoyed today's video, smash a like, comment, and subscribe. But until the next one, stay safe, stay sneaky, and peace out, guys.